that I'm told by businesses I've talked around to get there has been involvement there. You have the UTC, comment about the where connected exactly something wrong. been